You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Thanks for checking out today's episode of Graphic Novel Explorers Club. I'm one of your hosts, Johnny. I am joined by...
Fabulous Francis.
And I'm Dennis.
You are Dennis, apparently. Today we are discussing X-Men Grand Design by Ed Piskor. We hope you've already read today's title because all three of us have read the book, so beware, spoilers ahead. We would love for you to share your opinion and thoughts with us. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at GN Explorers Club, leave a comment on Facebook, or email us at gnexplorersclub@gmail.com. Graphic Novel Explorers Club is available on iTunes, Stitcher, and wherever podcasts are available. Welcome back to Graphic Novel Explorers Club. We're going to be reading X-Men Grand Design by Ed Piskor. I'm assuming that's how you say his name.
Yeah, you probably got made fun of a lot.
It's not like we just said that. For the listener, we've already introduced this book.
We went through a time loop.
Yeah, it was a time loop. That's an inside joke amongst the three of us here. Sorry, we apologize for that. But this book we have is the special collector's issue, Marvel Treasure Edition #1. Oops, just hit the mic.
I wish I knew how it
Trash
originally
cans
came
collect
out.
this.
It's okay. She's a little bit high on drugs. So,
No, I'm not.
So on the first, I guess on the intro page here, where the book title is described, there's this drawing of Cyclops with his laser goggle thing, and then just you could just see like his nose and his mouth and chin.
Mm-hmm.
There's a really funny drawing that someone did on Ed Piskor's Instagram account of that visor, but it's a ball sack.
Nice. Stay classy, everyone.
So one of his comic book buddies did that for him. I was like, that is hilarious. So okay, so this book it's kind of a
homage.
An homage to the 60s introduction of the X-Men.
Classic.
Which you wouldn't know if you've never read these. It's just a hot mess.
Right. I will say, depending upon your perspective, this book probably represents different things.
Yeah, I am probably more familiar with the X-Men than you are, Frankie, but I'm still sort of a greenhorn when it comes. And I was like, oh, God, this is moving fast.
Yeah.
Like, it moved fast. And there's a lot more. I didn't realize the introduction of the X-Men was there was so much violence.
Oh, yeah.
For like the 60s, I just thought the comic book code was still around. And I just thought there would be, I don't know, I just thought it'd be like campy fun, not
right.
Death and violence at every page turn.
Yeah, I mean, like you were describing, it's an homage. But it's drawn in the style of Kirby-esque. I should note the quality of the paper, the look of the whole thing. Looks like it came straight from someone's attic, and it's something
kind of. But this is almost like it's not quite. It's printed on not quite cardstock.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a heavier pound of paper because they'll rate it like 20, 30, 50, 100 pound. So it's a high. It's almost like vellum paper. It's very smooth.
And I just love the coloring. It just has an aged look, like as if the pages had been yellowed from time. It's a big format book, unlike most of the books we've looked at. And I really am in love with. You can really appreciate the art. Given
Go
the
ahead,
format.
Frankie.
So I flipped through it before I read it, and I too thought, wow, I actually like this artwork. It's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to read this is terrible and difficult. I had to turn on like the main light, and I still like the copy is so condensed into like a very narrow bar, and it made it extremely difficult to read. It was just, and there's not a lot of contrast there. It's all kind of muddy and blurry. And I was like, I'm fighting to even like read the stupid story that I want to read. Like,
Really, I had no problems reading it, and I read it in pitch black.
I will, and I use Braille, but anyways, I would agree with Francis that this is not exactly the most friendly read in that sense. Everything on purpose looks muddy, but the aesthetic does cause the written word to suffer as a result.
Yeah, and I did like it. Like, I thought the overall look and feel and the art, I was like, oh, this is really great art. But I was like, oh, like, this is where like fashion over function, right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think this is geared towards Ed Piskor. At the back of this book, you could tell he has loved the X-Men since he was a little kid.
For sure.
Like when the 1990s X-Men cartoon was on, he had all the action figures from that time. He has a bunch of his old cartoons.
I love that. We'll skip to that part really quick. There's a section where Ed basically displays his old drawings from childhood. And it's great to see, mainly because when I was drawing as a kid and I drew something like that, I thought, I suck. And I'm never going to be like Jim Lee or any of those guys because I don't draw like that. But then I looked at that, I realized, you know what? It just takes work and practice.
Oh, yeah. You look at it's
and now you regret your life choices.
Basically. What have I done?
No, it's great. I love, like, when you contrast the two together, you're like, holy crap.
Right.
That is a lifetime devotion to art.
Right.
The other thing I really, really love is when he draws Wolverine without his shirt on and just the density of his chest
Muscles,
hair.
right.
No, the chest hair.
Oh, yeah.
when from his childhood drawings, and the fact that the I don't know, he must have been like 8 or 9, maybe 10 when he drew this, and that the chest hair, it goes down the trail of happiness down his stomach into his pants, and I kind of wonder.
We're talking about the art so much because the book sucks.
No.
I would argue that the artwork, the look, the aesthetics, it's all part of the book, more so than others in some ways. The fact that it has a weathered look, that it looks like it came from someone's attic, I think is all
and it's
part
not
of it.
Illustrated in the style of a typical a comic book,
Right?
Like a Capes and Cowls monthly published comic book. It's not illustrated in that style at all.
And to add to the confusion, I'm sure for Francis, at the back they republish the actual X-Men #1.
Yeah,
but recolored.
I didn't even go to the back because as soon as I got done with the story, I was done. I was like, the end. I didn't even know all of his drawings were back there.
Well, goddamn, we're just bumping everything today.
Actually, you are.
Yeah.
No, Francis hit something too. I heard it. Well, Dennis, you're more familiar with the X-Men and Marvel stuff than either of us. Do you want to kind of lead this?
Yeah, I'll go over it quickly. I'm more familiar with the X-Men, I would agree, but I'm not familiar with every piece of lore. And what I did was I looked up some of the names that came popping up on Wikipedia and such. And what's great is basically in 2 issues, he blazes through basically the history of the X-Men. For me, I was actually surprised because I looked at it from 2 perspectives. 1, someone who has no idea what the X-Men are, and 2, someone who is familiar with the stories but hasn't seen them in a while. The fan version of looking at it, it was amazing. It read well for me. It was basically like an Easter egg every moment of different characters. Yeah. I was amazed at how many minor characters they put in there, or some off the wall 60 or 70 characters. It was
like,
great.
Like the who's at the beginning, that guy with the giant head. It's not me.
Yeah.
Not me. I have a big head, people.
As do I.
I have a giant pumpkin. Yours fits your body though. My giant pumpkin head, I should be at least as tall as you. But whoever the recorder is that?
Oh, the Watcher.
The Watcher.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I love is the recorder comes up with this other character to record what the Watcher has seen on Earth, and he's just a tape deck. He's like a reel-to-reel tape deck on his chest.
So that's the funny thing is, in some cases, they take the actual character. The recorder is a real character, but he doesn't look like that. In this one, they make him look like Iron Man meets, like you said, a tape deck, because his face kind of looks like Iron Man.
Or like Shockwave.
Right.
From
Transformers.
Transformers, yeah.
So yeah, they basically go through the entire history from even before Charles Xavier is born, which is a lot of that stuff is just how it happened, but just retold in a slightly different way.
It's part of the canon.
Right, exactly. Like his dad, the people who are working with him.
His dad works with Tony Stark's dad.
Right, and then Mr. Sinister eventually, how he was born, how his dad had died, and he got a stepdad, and a stepbrother, and the stepbrother eventually became Juggernaut. I mean, they
Which
go.
I didn't realize that.
I forgot some of that, to be perfectly honest, but it's all canon. It just didn't happen exactly like that. But what's interesting is I thought it was going to be a parody, and it wasn't. It was kind of done straight, and the artwork was pretty much just done like you would from that era.
I didn't think it was going to be a parody, but I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was just going to be like a reimagining, almost an Elseworld or a What If.
And it was kind of a straight
through
retelling.
Ed Piskor's eyes and illustration.
Right. I expected that as well. And yeah, it was kind of a straight retelling in a sense. The X-Men have gone through so many like reimaginings and rebirths, but I felt like this was a good primer. If you only gave someone one book to know all the lore, like all the different like weird bad guys, the Brotherhood of Mutant Evil,
how it all got started.
how it got started, who were the guys involved, the Mutant Registration Act. This was almost a crash course in X-Men. So from a fan's point of view, I thought it was amazing. However,
from somebody who has no idea, like,
and
Francis.
I'm sure Francis will chime in, if I looked at it from someone who had no idea who these guys were, if I was just reading this for the first time, this seems like a lot of info with not a lot of like development story. It's almost like just scenes, like greatest hits. It's like a greatest hits album.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I actually didn't realize how much I knew about X-Men until I started reading this book, because I'm familiar with some of the characters. I don't know their names. Like, I know the bald smart guy. Okay, like I've seen the movies.
The bold smart guy.
Yeah, like I get this.
Dude
So,
with knives for hands.
I'm reading it,
Freddy
and then
Krueger?
all
Yeah.
of a sudden, there's like a Nazi scene, and there's some other scene, and so this was me. I'm just gonna be honest. I was like, okay, there's no storyline. I'm just gonna start going through and kind of like reading bits and pieces.
Speed reading almost.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm so tired of the Wolverine story. We get it. They killed his wife and his kid, okay? Like, even me who doesn't know a lot, I could still pick out the Wolverine story in this, and I was
Wolverine's
like...
barely in this, though.
But it's enough. Like, I'm so tired. It's like the Batman
hates
books.
Canadians.
Like... Okay, and like, and every time someone tells it, there's like a slightly different twist on it, and I'm just like,
I don't see how you got Wolverine's in one scene in this when him and Captain America are like fighting Nazis.
no, when
And
his
then-
isn't it him that they talk about?
No,
like
that's Magneto.
when his wife and
That's Magneto.
Okay, so what's confusing is the dude.
So it's the same story for two different characters. That's even worse.
So that was Magneto, and in fact, if you watched, I think
Because in Old
X-Men
Man
Apocalypse,
Logan,
you
no,
would have
wait a
gotten
minute,
that.
but hold on, Old Man Logan, that's how his family was killed. Boom. So
No,
then
the Hulk
you,
killed his family.
oh well, and another thing we saw, like
I don't know.
Old Man Logan, his wife was murdered.
Yeah, by
No.
Hulk.
The
By
Hulk gang.
The Hulk gang.
Yeah, the Hulklings.
I can't anyway.
It all blends
It's
together
always
into one.
it's always a
Yeah.
man. The wife and kid are murdered, and then they just
I
go
like that.
through life.
The wife and the
with a chip
wife
on
and
their
the kid
shoulder,
are
and then
murdered
some
'cause-
girl's gonna try to come and like, I'll help you find love again. That wasn't in this. So really, this is what the story is about to me. There's a girl, and this is every story. There's a girl. She's born. She's part mutant. She doesn't want to be mutant, so she turns her back on mutancy. But then the mutants need her to save the world, so she joins them, and the inner conflict of not being a mutant, she resolves that and decides to be a mutant and save the world. And how could she ever turn her back on it? That's the story.
They address some of that though in that they
I feel like I'm yelling.
some of the
Kinda.
there's a part of the story where one of the mutants, I can't remember who it is, because if there is a negative side to this book, is that it moves very, very quickly through all these stories. You're like, wait, what?
Okay, I'm glad you said it, 'cause I thought it was
but
just me.
Hold on
No.
though. They talk about the mutants that can't hide or who have been outed. There's a lot of parallels to the X-Men, to like minorities, gays, lesbians, the LGBTQ community, because once you're outed, or if you can't hide it, like Angel or who's the guy with the tail?
Nightcrawler.
Nightcrawler, yeah. Like there's some mutants that they have no way to hide the fact that they're different.
Gotcha.
So they get stoned and beat up a lot. Like the reason Magneto's family gets killed though is because someone doesn't pay him the money that he's due, and he loses his temper and puts a pitchfork to their face, and then the crowd turns on them once they figure out that they're different and kills them, and he just happens to get away. So it's not quite just.
Are you sure that wasn't Wolverine?
That was not Wolverine.
I
Wolverine
understand.
is barely in this book.
They
it's
use
Magneto.
a lot of the guys like to have hair like that, the pointy hair. So
It's split down the
and
middle
like he had
and-
like bandages on his arm, so like, oh, those are
Yeah,
the blades. Like,
That was-
okay, it's Wolverine.
because it was his Auschwitz number. It was
Yeah.
his number on his wrist. But
Oh, hence the Nazis.
yeah,
See, I couldn't follow along, and I
well, no,
drank.
I really
Let's be
no.
honest.
I was looking at it, and
it
Like
is
a-
flawed. It's flawed.
yeah, it's a love letter to the X-Men and the mutant universe. If you love the X-Men and the mutant universe, you understand what's going on. If you're an outsider, it's a jumbled mess in some ways.
You know what this reminds me of is this band called the Walkmen, and they did an album, a song for song, like pretty much perfect cover of a Harry Nilsson album called Pussycats that he did with John Lennon during their quote unquote lost weekend, which was like 6 years. But so the Walkmen did the same. They did the same album, no different, just them doing this album. Then they released it as an album, and like a lot of reviews were, well, this is for a very niche market because you have to be a big fan of Harry Nilsson and you have to be a big fan of the Walkmen to want both of them to cross over, in this way, which is kind of this book. You know, it's like
Right.
you have to really love the X-Men and kind of know the lore for all of the Easter eggs, like you were saying, plus be a big fan of Ed Piskor's illustrations, which I am. But so yeah, if this is a Venn diagram, there's very little overlap for you to be in the middle there.
I would agree. Agree. As much as I love the book and the art and things like the white parts that were cosmic that really stood out because they weren't colored the same way as the aged stuff. All of that and in all the Easter eggs, it's not for someone who's new. There's honestly, it's just this rambling story. Like if you were drinking with someone who's a X-Men super fan, okay, tell me from the beginning how the X-Men were formed and what's the storylines. This is what will result. It's this drunk rambling. Okay, and then
this happens,
and then this happens,
and then you think he's dead, but flip the page, he's not dead. He's actually right there.
Skip 10 issues. We have Mimic, and then the Super Adaptoid. And then it's just,
there were so many characters that popped up in this. I'm like, who the hell are these people?
Yeah, they just popped up and they would say a few things and then they would
Be
disappear
gone,
again.
yeah.
And I'm like, wait, like there was the guy who like kind of blended in, but then like he was in the class with the girls. Her name
Jean Grey.
Jean, like he was in school with her, but then
that was
like
Toad. That was Toad, wasn't it?
Yeah.
No, that was Mimic.
No, that was a Mimic.
yeah, and then there was like the guy who was like trying to date her, but he was really like you could tell he was a bad guy, but you don't know who the bad guys are, and I just got like really confused.
There was a scene too where Professor X is believed to be dead, and they don't address how they found him, and then all of a sudden he's back in the thing, and there's like he's like, hey guys, sorry I was missing. And I was like, what?
They glaze over so much story. This would be good if, okay, Johnny, I need you to go to an X-Men trivia night with me. This is the one book I can give you so you can memorize at least some plot lines and stuff. It's almost like reading a Wikipedia page. But
that sounds so sad.
yeah, but some of the nuances in terms of like, okay, this is what Professor Xavier was doing and all this stuff. But they introduced so much that's amazing, like the Shi'ar Empire and all that stuff. That I remember reading that stuff, and it made sense to me because my mind is filling in what I already know, right? So I've read those issues, so I go, oh yeah, that's awesome, and I already know the connection. But but looking at it from the other perspective, because I try to appreciate it from Francis's perspective, not knowing that. It is. I would back her up 100% that it is kind of a jumbled. It looks like it's like going through someone's photo album.
Yeah.
And you're like, without any context, you're
greatest-
like, so now you're at Disneyland. Now it's Christmas. Now it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, and Jean Grey, whose kid is she? Like, who does she belong? Who gave birth to her?
No
Just
one.
regular people.
Yeah, so she's a
See?
special.
I'm so like that's even
So,
like
s-
that's
half-
like a Hermione Granger thing.
Yeah, it kind of is. Some of the mutants give birth to
I
other
thought she
mutants?
was the bald smart guy's daughter at one point.
No. And then he has a son though, David, and I thought he was going to play more into the book, and then like he ran off at one point, and then that was the last you saw of him.
So that's great because a lot of people don't know that Xavier has a son and now is a star of the Legion TV show, and so they actually mention that.
That's his kid.
That's his kid. He's Legion.
Oh,
So he's kind of crazy. So that was kind of mentioned.
He had so much mutant juice in him.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if I saw Storm. I thought I saw Storm.
You did
as a
okay,
child.
as a kid.
Yeah.
And then she was a little like what's that pickpocket?
Yeah.
What's the famous English little kid pickpocket?
The girl with the matchbook?
Oh no! It's from
Oliver Twist.
Yeah.
She's like an Oliver Twist because
I
she
almost said a Henry Rollins book.
What? Fuck, man. No, she's like an Oliver Twist. So she has essentially like this guy who controls her, and that's when
and then
Xavier
kills
bows
him.
him. Yeah, and so all this stuff happens. It's just like I said. It's like as if you sat a guy down, gave him a few beers, explain everything to me, and just rattling on.
I didn't realize Cyclops was like, so Cyclops is featured on the cover of the book. They show like the evolution of man from primate, and then for some reason a pirate. It's like a couple different primates, and then a standing man, and then a pirate, and then Cyclops facing the opposite direction of that image and blasting the sky with his laser eyes. I didn't realize he was the kind of the first mutant
Recruit?
in the X-Men.
Yeah, for sure.
There's like a second X-Men Sorry.
That's the one we talked about where they basically just reprint the legit actual first issue done by Kirby.
Oh, okay.
And then he
The part that I
colorizes it
just
like he
went
did
over.
the other ones.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
you didn't have to read that at all. It's just a reprint. That's the actual
And I
art
didn't
period.
read it.
didn't,
After
yeah.
reading through the other, I was like, I can't do this again.
The kid drawings are a little good. Oh, it's all Wolverine. See, right there.
Well, because
the
Wolverine
90s, man.
was Wolverine to the 90s is Deadpool to now.
Berserker Barrage.
I don't get the attraction. Like, I really don't. Like, I get the attraction with He-Man and Skeletor. I get the attraction of, like, Batman, Superman. Wolverine just has blades that come out of his arm.
Well, he
nah.
appeals to the Batman type fan. He's dark. He's brooding. He's not like the other heroes where we got to do the right thing. He's always chomping on a cigar.
He cusses.
He
Will murder left and right.
he's like part ninja essentially, and with his blades. I mean, it just seems cool to a kid.
Yeah.
And then,
To have
especially in the 90s.
Knives pop out of your hands.
The 90s, he was just like everyone looked like Wolverine. I mean, I could pull out. I think I recently looked at. It was either Cable issue #1 or X-Force, and it was done by Jim Lee and Mr. Tiny Feet, or no, Liefeld.
Oh, Liefeld.
And every other character had Wolverine hair. You would swear it's like they all went to the same barber. It was that whole pointy thing.
Wolverine even spilled over into the first Mortal Kombat game, or the second one with Baraka or whatever his name was. He would have blades that would come out of his arms. He was, I don't know, for whatever reason, he was part of the zeitgeist of the 90s where
And now he's not.
he's kind of
like Batman and has like more longevity, I think. Also, this is not related, but it kind of is. I always feel that Halle Berry is underutilized in those films.
That's
like she's
you're
just such
not
a
the
token. Okay.
first person to say that.
But I will argue that in Days of Future Past, the movie, she was pregnant at the time. So she was limited to what she could do.
in real life, she was
Okay.
pregnant.
Yeah. So the scene she filmed, in real life she was pregnant. So she
Are you
couldn't
the
do
dad?
it.
That seems like
We're very happy right now.
yeah. Oh, okay, good. Is Christy know?
It's an open marriage.
She's cool. Oh, all right. So yeah, I there's not like a too terrible lot to discuss about this book. I feel like we're gonna.
No, it's a quick history of the X-Men as a whole. I mean,
Yeah.
it goes into the Morlocks.
I feel like this is like it's like you said at the beginning. It's kind of a beginner's book.
Yeah,
If you want to
it's
just
a
jump
primer.
in and be like, oh, okay, yeah, it's like a greatest hits album. Like the first, like you buy the Clash's greatest hits,
Right.
And then you're like, oh, I like these songs. Maybe I should go check out the albums that they're featured in.
For sure.
So
And then after reading that, if you've thoroughly read it, you could sound like you were an X-Men fan forever. Like if I were to give this to a movie star that are doing an X-Men role, I would give them that because it gives them an entire history of the X-Men and a holistic point of view.
You know what this overlaps with? I feel like it's a good companion piece to read. I can't remember the title of it, but who is he does a lot of covers, very painterly. I can't think of his name. He did Kingdom Come.
Right.
What's that guy's name? Well, he did
Ross.
Ross. Yeah, Ross is. I almost said Jeff Ross, but that's the comedian.
Right.
But he did this book chronicling the history of the Marvel Universe in the early days of it, up to probably like the 60s or the 70s, and it's told from the perspective of a photojournalist who happens to work at the Daily Bugle too.
Alex Ross, yep.
And the painter, not the character's name. And he ages from like the 30s, the first time Namor, and the first Flame.
Right. Not the Human Torch.
Yeah, the Human Torch, not the guy from the Fantastic Four. There's like
the robot. There's a robot one. Yeah.
Is that who is he a robot? Oh. And it overlaps, and it's funny is that one deals way more with the rest of the Marvel Universe, and this one is just the X-Men. The X-Men pop up in it very sporadically. There's no Wolverine in it at all.
Sounds amazing.
But I think those two books should be read together.
Absolutely,
because that one it goes over every, like, the first time Namor attacks Galacticus when he shows up, which is like a big event, and that was like what kind of solidified the Fantastic Four as like the biggest thing during the 60s, right? The Fantastic Four were like the big comic book in
Absolutely,
the 60s.
Yeah.
And then he just happens to I don't know, it's done really well. We're talking about a different comic book. We'll have to read that another time. But yeah, I just think they would be a good companion.
No, I agree. I thinking about what you're saying for sure. And yeah, like, once again, it's hard for me to separate my knowledge and look at it, but it really is kind of a fanboy production. I would highly recommend this book. I love the art.
It's beautiful.
I think it came out. It's almost like a coffee table book.
Yeah.
But instead of just having random drawings, he kind of
or at your barbershop,
right?
At your hipster barbershop.
If you don't want to look at the Playboys there, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. But you probably don't know that, Francis. A lot of barbershops have Playboys.
I actually do know that.
The hair salons have Playgirls.
Oh.
All right. Well, so that's you recommend it?
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, I guess I'll give my conclusion. Highly recommend it. Great artwork. Great primer for the X-Men. It's definitely a love letter to the whole mutant universe. Don't give it to someone if they don't know anything about X-Men and they're going to get confused. But for someone who's a fan of the X-Men and loves that kind of Kirby art, highly recommend.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot. There's a scene in here where there's a character who's he must be dumb or not that smart. And he says he's asking for a picture, Picture, but he says picture, and he writes out picture. And so, Ed, if you listen to this, why did you put that in there? Why did you include that? So, yeah, you go for it, Francis.
This is my conclusion of the book. If you're thinking about reading this, there's a really bad 80s movie called Made to Order starring Ali Sheedy in it, and I think you should watch that instead.
Why?
Just because it's a better use of your time, and it's still a cute movie.
I would say
and
watch
it has nothing to do with X-Men.
the original Overboard.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Or for me, I would say Mannequin, because not only do you have a great movie,
Mannequin.
you have a fantastic Starship soundtrack.
We built this city. That's featured in there, isn't it?
Maybe.
Built this city.
Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now is the main song.
Oh, that's
If
right.
you're a true Mannequin
Jefferson
fan.
Starship.
I will say this. I would recommend it to people who are fans of that genre because the artwork is nice. Maybe buy it used. How expensive is this book?
I don't know, it's like $20-something bucks.
$1 million.
Hey, I honestly,
You think it's worth it?
I would think this book would be a lot more expensive given it is
cardstock paper.
Yeah, it is printed on like a brown vellum paper. It's stitch bound. It's not glued. it is done in a large format. There's a lot of, you could tell there was a lot of love that went into this book. So the fact that I think I got it for like $22-23 is a steal, I think, for the quality of that went into this.
I think too, some of the drawings, and this is where I've become jaded in comic books. Some of the drawings reminded me of that bald stupid guy from Preacher.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was just, and then there's the Nazi reference, and I think just because we've been reading so many books and so many things against my genre, that when I started seeing this, I just had like a visceral reaction, like, here we go. Like, but this one was not nearly as violent. It's not my cup of tea. I wouldn't recommend it, but if that's what you're into, you would probably really like it.
Yeah. I think if you're an X-Men fan, you should definitely go out and pick this book up.
It's a must-buy for an X-Men fan.
And if you've fallen in love with the X-Men through the X-Men movies, I think you should buy it too, because then you can see where they... Like, I never knew Toad existed until the first X-Men movie in 2001 or whatever it was that came out. I had no clue. I thought it was just a character that made up. And it's kind of nice to see characters in here that aren't Wolverine. It's all the other, secondary and tertiary characters that have kind of fallen by the wayside as far in popularity, especially now that Marvel via Disney's command has pretty much shut down the X-Men. It's kind of nice to see all these beginning characters. So
did Disney buy Marvel?
Yeah, Disney's owned Marvel for years.
So it's complicated. Disney did buy Marvel, but the Marvel movie rights are divided because of the fact that Marvel needed money. So the X-Men and Deadpool are with Fox, which is why Disney wants to buy them.
And Fantastic Four.
And then Universal owns partially the Hulk, which is why there usually isn't an independent Hulk movie.
Universal owns any movie, the movie rights to Hulk being an independent Hulk movie. But if he's in a team up, then he could be in the Marvel universe.
It's really complex. And then TV is also divided in a similar fashion.
Yeah. So, but they own the publishing. Disney kind of has the say on
the comic books.
Yeah. So it wasn't like officially released, but that's
depressing, and I don't even like these books.
Disney's copyright issues and ownership of things could be a whole, and it is. Many podcasts have talked about the Disneyfication of basically the creative realm. There's.
But they've let Marvel do a lot of things.
There's going to be a mutant princess, and wait, that's Shrek.
Right. Well,
that's
and then
Disney,
you could
though.
argue that Princess Leia is a Disney princess now because they own Star Wars.
That's why they're making all those stupid movies now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So we got way off topic here at the end, but okay. So Dennis and we say you should buy it. Francis,
you should buy it if you're into that kind of thing, and then you should get a dating profile and go date people.
Swipe right, people.
Yeah.
Where can people follow you, Francis Prezi?
They can find me on Insta at Words and Waffles, and I invite the authors and artists to tell me that I'm wrong.
I also invite the authors and artists to tell Francis she's wrong.
I believe Justin Jordan has told us several times
he has.
that we're wrong.
Well, we're going to eventually cover that.
Did you say you miss him?
I do.
I think he liked our last post for the book.
Yeah.
But he didn't make any comments.
Yeah. No, he made a comment.
He did?
But yeah.
Oh.
Something about, he said, there's one more volume. And I was like, yeah, I know. We're going to read it.
We're
Sorry,
committed.
man. For better or for worse, we're reading it.
So you can find the podcast Insta and Twitter account at Gene Explorers Club.
We're not saying Instagram.
The cool kids say Insta.
I just say I.
Oh, man.
At I.
Our igram.
And you can always email us gnexplorersclub@gmail.com. And we also have a Facebook page if you want to visit there, look at any events that we might be attending, etc.
Yeah, we're doing, if you live in the Sacramento, Northern California area, we're starting a reading club with Oblivion Comics, and we might be doing a trivia night with them too. So.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out. And then, we're trying to make more appearances so you can see us. I'll be appearing in costume.
It's not a joke. He's
Yeah.
going to do that.
Yeah,
Oh,
my kids already said. So do you like just wear costumes every day now? I was like, pretty much.
Pretty much. This is adulthood.
I'm quitting my job. I'm a legit Ghostbuster now.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
If you want to plan ahead for next week's episode, we're going to read Park Bench by Christophe Chaboute.
Bop.
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 Jigga jam boom bop bop.